how a physician in training became financially independent in just his second year of residency. You want to hear his inspiring story on this episode of Bootstrap MD. Hey guys, it's Dr. Michael Ming. Welcome to another episode of Bootstrap MD. We have a very special guest onto the call, and I'm really excited. And it was, we would actually been talking, I think, through LinkedIn and through Facebook, and we finally kind of got together, and I really think you'll really enjoy his story. And in some aspects, I think Chris, who's on the call, and myself, we have a lot in common, but we'll kind of get to it. Because it's almost like talking to myself in the mirror in some aspects of it. So, Chris, I'm going to give you a proper introduction. Dr. Chris Liu is an American entrepreneur. He's an investor, consultant, author, speaker, executive coach, and physician advisor. He's a native Houstonian. He received a full scholarship from the Terry Foundation, received his MD, PhD from the Medical Scientist Training Program through the Joint Baylor College of Medicine, Rice University, Bioengineering department. And I learned, Chris, that you got a full ride. So that's awesome. No student loans. He retired from a career in medicine in 2016 to fully focus on running his portfolio of businesses. He has extensive consulting experience working with hospitals, tech startups, high net worth clients, and executives over the past 12 years. Through his passion and experience in starting companies and working with them, he's positioned himself and leverage that experience into building a successful business brand, and that's big, and we're going to talk about branding in just a moment, and career, and publishing and speaking extensively about business, financial freedom, and entrepreneurship to audience worldwide. He's the author of 3 books, including the one that I had been reading, The Physician's Guide to Financial Freedom, Getting Started as a Consultant. And I believe that's your most recent one, right, Chris?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. But he's got 3 books out there, which is awesome. I mean, I've been kind of languishing and getting my book out, so I'm going to definitely ask you for advice. But without further ado, thank you, Chris, Dr. Chris Liu, thank you for coming on to the call today.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be on the show.
Yeah, and like I said, what I alluded to at the beginning, it's almost like looking into a mirror. We've got a few things in common. Elephant in the room. I think we're both of the Asian persuasion. You're Dr. Liu. My last name is Wu Ming, but for ease for my patients, somebody call me Dr. Wu. And we both retired from medicine, although I came back and ran some clinics, and you completely retired from medicine in 2016, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
That's awesome. So, like I said, I did enjoy reading your book. I advise you guys to pick it up on Amazon. It's actually got 3 books out there. I think one is on real estate, and one kind of tells your story. Correct?
Right. Yeah. The first one was my autobiography and career transitions. It goes into different opportunities, real estate, and then my second one goes into more of the stock options, equity side of investing. And the third one was the consulting side. Oh,
that's great. So what I want to do is, as you can tell, I'm a kind of a nerdy guy. I like comic books, and I've always been fascinated with like secret origins, like how did Peter Parker become Spider-Man, Clark Kent become Superman. So how did you become Dr. Christopher Liu, retired from medicine, consultant to hospitals and high net individuals?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. I get answered that a lot, and I think a lot of it is because we're my upbringing. So I was, I'm sort of the Gen X, Gen Y on the cusp. So a lot of the industrial age ideas where you had to grow up, you had to get an education, get a stable job, work for 40, 50 years, that was sort of ingrained in me. So, and at that time, the key to success and stability was to pursue jobs that were high paying. So law, medicine, finance. So of course, my parents were both in the medical field, so they encouraged me and my brother to pursue careers in medicine. So, your parents want the best for you, and, they have the best intentions. But really, my passion was always, as from an early age, I was always an entrepreneur. I started with a snow shoveling business, gathering a group of friends. We'd split all the profits, and then in the summer it would be a lawn mowing business. So I was always an entrepreneur, and my passion and my primary motivation and my drive is starting companies and businesses around innovative ideas and growing them, scaling them, working with teams. And usually, so I'm the one that gets them up and running, and then I move on to the next thing. So that's, but nevertheless, yeah, I still pursued a formal education, which I think really, even though it wasn't my passion, it taught me a lot of things about myself and how to succeed. So, but really, my entrepreneurial venture started during graduate school because I had a lot of time then, and I started two companies, one in real estate, one in stocks, and was able to grow those to the point where I was able to achieve financial freedom during grad school, and I was 29 at that time. And so a lot of realizations and epiphanies came to me. So one was just the power of technology, smartphone, Facebook, YouTube, Netflix, all these were the nascent years and they were just coming on board. So, and what that told me was that you no longer had to do this 15 years of school and training, pursue a stable job. And a lot of the medical profession that I saw was just a lot of just fee for service. So I didn't see a lot of opportunity for growth or innovation. And it just wasn't me. I was more interested in pursuing new ideas. And then the second thing was the two differences between pursuing a traditional versus a entrepreneurial path. So there's three things that we can talk about later, but one was time versus opportunity cost. Two was pursuing income versus pursuing income producing assets that produce residual income. So that was big. And then the third thing was risk. So risk in terms of not just investments, but risk in terms of not pursuing your dreams, not pursuing your passions, succumbing to your fear of failure, succumbing to fear and regret. So those three things really dawned on me. Go ahead.
Yeah. So just so I get a time frame here, and forgive my naivete on how the MD PhD works is. So did you get your MD first and then followed by your PhD?
Yeah,
or you do it concurrently.
I did. Well, it was 2 years of medical school, and then you go. That's sort of have you get your basics, and you do a little bit of clinical rotations, and then you go into PhD, and it's supposed to teach you how you can use research to solve medical problems. I think the idea is really good, but I think the real reality of it is that it's really hard to combine the two into a career. You have to either choose either clinical medicine or research. It's really hard to do both. But I think the idea and the concept is really great.
So when you were in graduate school is when you actually built up your assets to actually be financially independent. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. So, during graduate school, I had the choice, do I complete medical school? Do I go to residency? Do I, pursue my startups full time? So, and a lot of it was just social conditioning where I was highly encouraged to graduate medical school and go into residency. And really the funny thing was when it came time to choose what field or specialty, I had 15 different options and really none of them really appealed to me. And so, I thought I have a lot of characteristics as a surgeon, but more my skill set and talents and passions are more in finance and business and entrepreneurship. So, nonetheless, I thought orthopedic surgery would be a great fit. And, I pursued that. I got in, and then I did it for 2 years. And really, I look back on it. I learned a lot about myself, but really I wasn't passionate about it. I couldn't see myself doing it for the rest of my life. I was more interested in starting companies and pursuing entrepreneurial ventures.
So you went in, you became an orthopedic surgeon, and you went into a clinic group, a hospital. You're a physician employee.
Well, I did 2 years of residency.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and then this was the height of the 2008 crisis. So.
Oh, okay.
Right, and so I had two options. One is, do I complete residency or I because real estate at the height of the '08 crisis was really, really cheap in Houston. So,
Right.
and I already had a skill set where I was able to, I know how to find properties, I know how to fund them, I know how to renovate them, I know how to get them rented out. So, my intuition and my higher self just told me to take a leap of faith and pursue real estate full time. So, because I had that background, and that was really what my passion was.
So how did that go over with your program director?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because uh, he really encouraged me to stay. He and all my colleagues, all my friends, all my family, they at that time they said, "Oh, you're throwing away your future.
Mm,
Oh, you don't know what you're going through some crisis. You need to talk about it." And was met with a lot of resistance, and more of it, I think it was just because it went so against these deeply ingrained beliefs. Where because back then, now I think a lot of people switch and do other things, but I think 11 years ago, to leave a orthopedic residency and decide not to practice that, that's sort of very unheard of. So
right. I'm having like flashbacks with my own mom.
uh,
I'm a little bit older than you, but I was in family practice, and then I actually was in practice for 5 years, and I started some internet business that allowed me to retire.
yeah.
But I didn't tell my mom for like a year. You know how tiger moms. Well, that's another
Yeah,
story, but
yeah,
you know what I'm saying. Um, so, did they know that you had like this real estate empire that you were working on, or did you kind of keep things quiet?
well, they the question that on the exit interview they said, because the question came, how are you gonna, he didn't want just to leave and you to be broke and struggling. So he said, the talk came finances. So I told him, I had started these two companies in graduate school. They're up and running. All I have to do is pursue them full time and scale them up. And at that point he was just like, oh, then you must know what you want, and you have to do what is best for you. So whatever he said that he really wanted me to stay, but in the end I had to pursue what is best for me in terms of my dreams, my passions, and my future. So
Wow.
yeah.
So he was actually pretty open to that. I like my own story, and not to get my own story, but I had some friction from kind of my colleagues.
uh,
Like what am I doing? And
right.
and many of my colleagues, that's the only thing that we knew how to do, right? Is to see more patients, substitute time for money, and we'll miss that 401k, right? Or that's what that or the I was a shareholder at the time. Whatever perks there was, we would miss out. And what's interesting is in your book you talk about haters. You have a section in about haters,
Uh-huh.
and I'm going to kind of read what you write. As you gain success, you would invariably attract haters. This is extremely prevalent in the medical profession, which is filled with a scarcity hoarding mentality and a competitive versus cooperative ethos. Many people were in the field for pure egocentric reasons, as you know, because I was one of them. Can we expand on this? Because this is stuff that my listeners, they want to know, because many doctors want to quit medicine, but they are worried about the haters. So maybe you can give us some insight into how
Yeah,
you deal with it.
that's a great question because well, the concept of haters, I think a lot of it deals with a lot of it is with envy and jealousy. So either they're envious of you because you had the courage to step up and say, I don't want to do this, I want to do something else, and you transition, or jealousy. Very rarely is it where they, especially in the, there's the whole hyper competitive, the pre-med, med, residency, but as a field we're all supposed to be cooperating. um, but and I allude to the fact that I know how one feels because I was in medicine for the wrong reasons, doing it to fulfill societal obligations, thinking that it's going to lead to happiness and stability, whereas when you actually reach it, day one of orientation of residency, I said, is this it? I worked so hard, and this is it. Is this, and I'm looking around, and I'm looking around in disbelief. It's like you sacrifice everything, and it's not what you expected, right? So, so I know, and then a lot of my colleagues, they were in it, just so they could, provide for themselves and their families. They didn't really love the profession. So when they see someone, it's like the herd. And when they see someone's growing and starting to really come into themselves, there's going to be this effect where they're just, it's because you're sort of going against the whole ingrained culture. So, and that's where a lot of it, this from 2008 all the way to now, I said I learned a lot as myself, because I learned how to put boundaries and say, this is not what I want. This is not me. This is not what I'm passionate about. I want to spend the rest of my time doing other things. So, and that's where you start to look into yourself, and you have to really just dig deep in, because all of society is always telling you to be what other people want and what society wants you to be. So you really have to stay true to yourself and just say, no, this is not me. I have to do this for myself. So and deep down it was like when I if I had stayed, I tell all my friends and colleagues 11 years later, it was the best decision that if you look at in terms of investment, or what college or what school or whatever, who to marry, deciding to start my business was the best decision I've ever made. That's like the number one decision. And the thing is, 8 years later, I was able to fully retire and take a year off and launch my freelance consulting company. So, if I hadn't done that, I would probably still be in the system, be very unhappy, it just wouldn't be a pretty picture.
Yeah, and I'm sure you have colleagues who are kind of still in the same boat.
Yeah.
So when you made that decision, and again, I hear this from my listeners who are still struggling with this. How long did you take to make that decision? And did you have any mentors or maybe people in the business world that you could count on as to give you advice?
Back then, it was a lonely time, because, like I said, for almost 8 years, I thought I was the only one. I felt, even though I was successful on the outside with my business and I was doing what I loved, I felt like a failure in front of I never went to any reunions. I never hung out with my med school classmates. And it was just because I felt like a failure. I felt alone. But then what was interesting was, 2016, that's when this sort of physician burnout movement and sort of this whole movement with all these tribes was coming along. And that's when I went to my first SEEK conference. So, and that just opened my eyes, because there's just there's like 500 physicians, all like-minded. So that really opened my eyes. But back then, really, my only mentors were books. Seriously, they're just books. Back then, they didn't even have digital books. I think YouTube was there, so I was listening to it, and it was that's what now my daily habit is to spend an hour each day, feeding my mind with ideas, and just great ideas, and people that I really wanted to listen to: Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Tony Robbins, Oprah, all of these influencers who I aspired to and who I looked up to. That's what I fed my mind. And so, and really, it was a lonely time, honestly. So.
Yeah, it's funny. Again, I in one of your chapters, we're going to talk a little bit about branding, but you give a list of like brands of not just people, but you get your Tony Robbins, your Mark Cubans, but of brands like McDonald's and Facebook and Coca-Cola. But there, like you said, there's no doctors on that list. So,
yeah.
But I kind of, and then you talk about an exercise you do when you looked at the world's wealthiest doctors. And not to say that money is always, a reason to do things, but I've done that myself, where I look in to see like who are the wealthiest doctors.
Uh-huh.
The ones who are wealthy aren't the ones who are actually seeing patients, right? They're the investors, they're the creators. They may be in charge of some big HMO. Maybe they're a CEO, but very few of them are actually seeing patients. I mean, of course, you got your like your Beverly Hills surgeons and those celebrities, but that's a brand usually. You know, they usually have their own brand and such. But it
Yeah.
was interesting to me that you did it that kind of exercise. It did something very similar.
Yeah, I was because I've always just and then that's one thing I encourage people is if you go into medicine because of the money, it's there's better things to do than medicine. There's finance, you can there's hedge funds, there's investing, there's business, all of these. If you're interested in it for the money, go and do something business oriented. If you're interested in doing something altruistic that pays well, then medicine may be an avenue, but don't just do it just for the money for money's sake. So, and then a lot of, if you look at the most, Warren Buffett and Steve Jobs, they were the entrepreneurs. They started, they came up with ideas, they changed the world. It's more, they weren't doing they weren't doing a 9 to 5 working 40 to 50 years sort of gig. They were taking risk, branching out, starting companies, pursuing bold ideas. And so the entrepreneurs, the businessmen, the investors, the finance, that's where all the money is. If you're interested in them, but not to say that money is the only thing, but don't just do medicine just for the money itself. Do it because you want to do something altruistic.
Right, right. And there is, but I do think that doctors have an advantage, and they may not often think it as an advantage, but in general, unlike, just your regular person, most physicians, they make pretty good money, right? They make decent money.
Right. Yeah.
So even just starting I hate the word hustle, but a side hustle or a side gig, a side business is something that they can start and they're not going to lose their shirt on it because they can always like, well, I can do a locum tenens where I can change my way that I work to allow me to pursue a venture or something, of that nature. So, but many doctors don't do that because one thing that we do try to avoid is risk. Did you
Right.
ever have, you talk about risk, and what are some things that you've kind of struggled with, or were you able to overcome that rather easily?
No, risk is something that you have to develop a tolerance for. So, and it really, because really my background, because I had a really unstable, well, I wouldn't say unstable, but really my pure motivation, uh, just in general, was just freedom and stability. So where I wasn't relying upon a job, or where I wasn't relying upon a boss or a corporation. So that was my underlying motive, right? So at an early age, I was always taking calculated risks. So whether that was starting companies or mowing people's lawns. I bought my first stock when I was in high school, and I started reading about real estate and investing early on, where I was just educating myself. And then I think risk is something that you can. Some people are inherently risk averse, like Elon Musk, or these guys. They take enormous amounts of risk. I think that's ingrained in them. But I think you can take little steps to mitigate your sense of risk, because a lot of risk is just fear. So, and if you can take steps to allay the fear. So what Ray Dalio in his book Principles talks about is managing risk. So you look at a particular situation and see all the different things that can potentially happen, or bad things that can happen. So in my real estate investment business, I always have insurance, flooding, plumbing, electric, fire, tenants, so you'll have all these things, but sometimes you can have something that comes out of the blue that you never calculated. So that's how you get experience, right? So, but that's interesting that you say the risk, because you know, so a physician really, you spend 15 years and then you get a stable, high income job. And then pretty much that you're on this path, right? So, as you said, we're risk averse. We don't want to get sued. We don't want to deal with malpractice. We don't want to go against the grain. A lot of physicians, we were the A+ students, followed we were the good students. So, but then you also have to look at risk in terms of not going for your dreams. So, so the pain of regret. So that's also a risk too, right? Because there's a cost to everything. It may seem like there's no cost, but everything in terms of time, money, emotions, energy, relationships, there's always a cost to everything. So if you choose, stability, you're going to miss out on more opportunity. So that's why that's why I left a stable career to pursue my dreams and passions.
I love that. And like I said, family is big to me. And, for myself, my kids are older, so it's not as big a deal as it used to be, because now they don't want to see dad all the time. No, but it was like, for myself, when my kids were like 4 or 5, I was like, I was just thinking, I only have like 13 summers left for them, and it really kind of just like, why am I in the hospital, like working 60 hours and, just kind of killing myself. But I love what you said about the risk of not pursuing your dreams, not pursuing your goals, because the last thing you want to have is, I like to say to some of my students is, what are you going to have on your tombstone? What are they going to say about you? Are they going to say, well, he was really good for pay for performance. He made all those indicators, right? But I think, now it is a lot easier, like you said, with all these tribes, all these Facebook groups. Many people now are used to being more independent, working different ways, even through things like telemedicine, where you've got some variability on how a doctor can work and how you can make that. But I want to, only a few more minutes left. Of course, I want to respect your time. I want to talk about your consulting business.
Okay.
That is very interesting. And I'm a big fan of consulting. I like to think of consulting as like the ultimate side business for physicians, because you don't have to wait to quit your job like you did, Dr. Liu. You can actually do this on the side and then bring it up. So talk about your experiences in consulting and why you chose the particular consulting that you're doing now.
Okay. Well, I think consulting is great for anyone it's for someone that's very highly creative. So because essentially what it is you're taking a marketable set of skills and you're branding it and you're creating it so that you're able to bring it to the mass audience. So for example, my consulting business encompasses coaching, speaking, writing, startup advising, and large hospital consulting, and consulting for high net worth professionals, executives. So, but you also, for example, you can be a medical science liaison. You can be a pharma consultant. You can be consultant for the FDA. There's so many. Your opportunities as a consultant are literally unlimited. It depends on how well you're able to brand, market, and advertise yourself and your services. So, and it's really great because one, is very lucrative. Your per hour rate is, usually in the 200s plus per hour. So it's really, your compensation is really what. Two is you're independent. So you're not tied to a hospital or employer or anybody. I can accept an assignment. I don't have to accept an assignment. I can take holidays, weekends, vacations, and three is it involves a lot of travel. So you can, if you love traveling and seeing new places, and each assignment and project is different. So for me, I really like the novelty and the variety of things. I like to see different situations and learn from new experiences. And so that's really good. I really think that the area of online entrepreneurship and online marketing is great for consultants because right now, because as a consultant, to start your consultant business and to grow and scale it in today's age takes a lot of know-how in terms of social media, email marketing, how to use Facebook groups, webinars, podcasts, books, and things like that. So it's great for those that are interested in online entrepreneurship and online marketing and things like that. So,
So one of the consultings that you do is you work with hospitals, um, and we talked before it, and we talked how having that MD PhD behind your name really kind of opened more doors about it. Can you elaborate on that?
yeah. So, and it's really good because I forgot to mention that as a consultant, whether you finish residency, if you didn't finish residency, license, boards, all of these things add to your value. Even though you're not practicing, you still have that experience that a lot of hospitals and physicians are looking for. So, for example, one segment of my consulting business is with the developing electronic health records with physicians and clinical end users, right? So, and when usually for these projects, usually they have people that are certified in these electronic systems, but they don't have that medical background. They don't have that know-how of what surgeons and physicians are looking for, especially in terms of efficiency. And in terms of documentation, ordering, the workflow of the entire patient in experience from intake to discharge. So they don't have that, but as a physician, you do. So when you go into these projects and work for large hospitals, when they know you're a physician, it's instantaneous trust, instantaneous rapport, and you can't find that in someone who doesn't have a MD or who hasn't been trained in the medical field. So that's a huge plus in terms of large hospital consulting and things like that.
Yeah, and just in my own experience, I ran a medical marketing company where I would work with clinics and such, and I won't tell you that I was the best SEO person or I was the best pay-per-click advertising, but there was a camaraderie because I was an MD.
Yeah.
I was working at the time, and they just know it was a lot easier to get to the gatekeeper to actually sell our services.
Yeah.
And it was funny that one of my first clients was the clinic that I used to work at. So many years ago, they kind of not so, they're saying, hey, Mike, what's Mike doing? And we weren't sure. And then they ended up hiring me, it was actually kind of karma and kind of funny.
Oh,
But yeah, so again, we're at the half hour, and I know you've got to travel. With consultants, do you work with physicians? Is that part of your consulting as you do as well? Maybe we could talk about.
Yes. Yeah. So in terms of these large hospital contracts, I work with physicians. I work with physicians with coaching, executive coaching. So one segment of my client base is the early stage physicians. They just want to educate themselves about how to transition into career, how to develop side hustles, develop alternative streams of passive income. I work with another set of physicians that have already, retired from medicine and are entrepreneurs. So they're interested in learning how to brand themselves, how to use online marketing, how to position themselves, how to capitalize on their particular niches. So predominantly my client base is physicians. So I work with a lot of physicians. So.
And what would be the best way to contact you?
Oh,
more about you. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I have one is you can, for all of the information, my 3 books, they're on Amazon. So I have an Amazon author page that I'll send you the links to. But if you just type in my name, Christopher H. Liu, and MD PhD, my name will come up. My 3 books will come up. Also on LinkedIn, I'm very active on LinkedIn as well. So you just type in my name, and also Instagram as well. I do a lot of Instagram marketing and Facebook marketing. So, and I'll send you all the links as well. So
awesome. Yeah. And again, I encourage you guys to get his book. At least the book that I read is really good. I'll make sure I get you a good review on Amazon.
Oh,
That's important, right?
yeah,
Right? All
exactly.
about the reviews. So, thanks again for joining us on this call. Is there any last advice or advice you can give to our listeners today?
Yeah, thanks for having me. And really, it's now in these times, the concept of stability doesn't exist. So expect a lot of change. So really, what one thing that really helped me as an entrepreneur and just to better prepare myself for the future was to just see where all the trends are coming in terms of all the fields and position yourself accordingly. And the second thing is really there's no shortage of opportunities. There's no excuses not to pursue your dreams. These days you can start a company from your cell phone for free. So there's really you should pursue what you are good at and what you love, and not really what society or or your parents or your spouse or what your friends and colleagues are telling you. So really, be authentic to yourself.
Yeah. Again, this is, with everything going on in the world and politics and all this stuff, it really is the best time,
Yeah, it's great.
starting, just the technology and the internet and, trying to do your business, with, postage mail or, newspaper ads. You can't do it, right? You're able to, we got in contact just through LinkedIn and, you're able to travel. Like you said, we just talked, you're going to be traveling to Canada, doing some work up there. There has been countries that I worked at. I've never even traveled there before, but because I had a website or we connected online, that allowed me to do it. And I love the example you gave on the cell phone. There's more technology in that than they had, 10 times what they needed to get to the moon.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's really crazy. So thank you, Dr. Liu. Guys, go check out his book. He's got The Physician's Guide to Financial Freedom. His real estate. Go look him up on Amazon. Get the book. And thanks again for joining us. And stop looking backwards. Always keep moving forward. Thanks again, guys.
Thanks.